Hi guys, George here from Adventure Sports. We're out at Lake Wyber. I'm going to do a bit of a short video on how to set up your kite. This is a bit of a reminder. After you've done your lessons, you've usually forgotten half of what you did. So you bought your gear, at least you can watch this and go, okay, that's a reminder of how we set up our kite when we go back out. Today we're using a duotone Neo, duotone pump, a duotone click bar. If you have a different bar or a different kite or different pump, they're all very similar, but for sure, any questions at all, just leave a comment below the video. So one of the things we want to touch on when we get down to our site where we're going to go kiting, we're using Lake Wyber because this is where we teach most of the time, is you want to have a bit of an assessment of your site, check out to see how windy it is, that it's a safe environment, check that you can get far enough out that you're not crashing into stuff, and make sure you allow room to practice. If there is heaps of people out there and you can't see a way to get out through them, don't go. Come and talk to somebody who knows what they're doing, assess the site safely. No matter where you go in the world, you can always walk down the beach, have a look, maybe walk out in the water and check to see how deep it is and what the bottom's like before you go kiting. Make certain you're confident, you've got a good idea on what you're doing before you start. Now we're going to go set up our kite on the beach and we'll start pumping up. All right, so we've got our Neo out the bag. We're going to unroll it. Unrolling her downwind. If it was windy, I'd let the wind help me do this. Keeping myself slightly on the upwind side of the kite the whole time. Making certain that it's not caught up in any bridles at all. Everything's nice and neat. First thing I do is I go back, shut my deflate valve. This is where the air all came out. Closing that valve, Velcro across the top, done. Next thing I do, I'm getting my pump and I'm going to hook up my pump leash. One pump leash. This stops us losing the kite to getting blown away in the wind. Hooked up, can't lose it. Open up my inflate valve. Hooking up my valve. Now remember, it goes in, about a quarter turn and a little click, and she's locked on. If I keep trying to go tighter, I'll just break the valve. If I find that my pump is too far away from my kite, I simply come in a bit closer, give me a bit more slack and movement in the hose, nice and neat. Start pumping up. I'm going to pump this kite up to 6 to 8 psi so it's nice and tight. We don't want it loose and floppy. As your kite inflates, you want to check that it's evenly inflating. Don't rush at this point. See, everything's working. There's no voids in it. There's nowhere where the air isn't getting to. If there's a void in your kite and you pump it, just keep pumping until it gets too tight, it'll burst it. Always check it about that point. You can see now it's nice and even. We're going to pump her right up to pressure. I want 6 to 8 psi. Drum tight. I get on here, I want to twist all the way back. The eject's in my hand, doesn't let the air out. Putting my cap on, and we are locking off the isolation valves. Closing one off, 2 off, and 3 off. There's a bit of a close-up here on how this works. Okay? You don't need to uncover it, you can leave it covered. You can see it's quite a simple alligator type clamp. Locks off, opens. Important to close these off for safety. Each strut is a life-saving device if you're out in the big blue. Make certain you're handling your kite by the leading edge only. You're not downwind, you're upwind. You can see as I walk into, not a lot of wind here today. Kite's sort of flying out behind me. I can be anywhere along this leading edge. The kite will still perform fine. Okay, so now tipping her over on the beach. If I do it from the middle, I got to be tall enough to reach the middle. If I come down to one side a bit, I can simply roll it over, pop her down. Nose is into the wind, securing your kite here. Wind is blowing this direction over it. Once you get your kite like this, we're going to secure it on the beach with sand on either side, your twin tip with the fins up, or your pump in your bag. And now your kite won't blow away. That's the first part of doing it. Checked our area for safety, inflated our kite, laid it out and secured it on the beach. So now we've laid our kite out, nose down into the wind. We've secured it by putting sand or something on top of the canopy. Wind is coming over it. First thing we do, before we lay out our lines is we get our bridles and we check our bridles. We are looking for things like this. I see lots of people trying to fly their kites with their bridles tangled up. Let's make certain we don't do that. Make certain they're all nice and neat, and your kite will fly better and you'll have a better day. Checking one bridle. Checking the other bridle. We're also looking to see that they're not caught over the top of the wing, wrapped up wrong. Checking these parts here. Make certain your kite is set up properly and you know how to do it. Next off, we'll grab our bar. Now, for today, we're going to do a downwind layout. We could go into the pros and cons of it, but that's what we teach out here generally, so that's what we're going to do. Okay? We're starting behind the kite and we're going to lay downwind. This is a duotone click bar. A little bit fancier than some of the bars out there, but they all work basically the same. Taking our lines off, putting the chicken loop up under my arm to keep it out the way, and I'm not rushing. I'm just taking my time, taking those lines off as I walk backwards. They all come off. Now you can go straight back behind the kite, which I recommend, but you can also go at up to 45 degrees either side and it's still a downwind layout. It is behind the kite. I'm going to show you the simplest and safest way of doing everything, not necessarily the quickest. Again, if you have any questions, leave it in the comments below the video and we'll get back to you. Simply laid that down. Here I've got red and I've got black. From behind the kite downwind, you can see that red is on the right behind the kite and black is on the left. Make certain they match. Laying everything down so colours match the kite. Stepping over your bar, picking all your lines up, and I'm just separating my outside lines with my legs. This is not a great skill. I'm not trying to do all 4 lines at once. I'm simply separating the outside lines with my legs. The more tension I put out in front of me and the further that arm gets away, the quicker and easier this is. Get to the end here, I can sort out my 2 outside lines. One outside the kite that side. Pulling it back through. Dropping the 2 centres. I look back down this bar and I can see it's not tangled. I grab my other outside line. And I look back down it and I try to make certain there is no mistakes here. You cannot fix stuff once your kite is in the air. It is not tangled. We're now going to walk back down and walk out those 2 centres again. Red on the right, behind the kite. Not all brands are colour coded. It's good to have a system, but if you have a system, I recommend you stick to your safety line, being your red line, and putting it on the right behind the kite or on your left when you're flying. It's just purely a system. With duotone, they're colour coded that way. Walking the whole lot out. It's very simple, as you can see. If I tried to do all the lines at once, you tend to end up feeling quicker but taking longer. Colour coded. I can look back down my bar and I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, all untangled. Very easy to see in a downwind layout. You can tell there's no crosses, there's nothing broken, it looks correct. Come to the end of my lines. Look, it's a red one and it's a red one. If at this point in time this was grey, you've laid your bar out upside down, go fix it. Simply open her up, put her on the end knot in the duotone bar. Good to go. Then we'll go the other outside line. Now I'm doing them in 2 pairs because I like to do things again in a system. 2 outsides, 2 insides. It's the way I teach, so that's how we're doing it. It's not the only way. Putting it back together, pulling it tight, then sliding down to the knot. Things people do wrong here is they just put it on and they pull it tight, but it's not really tight. It's tight on the knot. You've got to get it tight on the string first, then slide it down to that knot, and then she won't come off then. Go to our inside lines. Same process. We got a knot, we got a loop. We tuck that loop through itself to make our lark's head. Put it well down the string, tight on the line, and then slide it down to the knot. Nice and neat. Again, got the right colours. Now if you have a different brand, their colour bars will have the correct colours to match together. Hooked up. So hopefully this has been helpful so far. We're going to go down in a minute and talk about how the release works. As you can see, all hooked up nice and easy. Okay guys, well now we've laid out our kite, we've checked all the lines, we've checked all the bridles. We can even look from here and check everything again and see that the lines aren't tangled going all the way down there. We're about to hook up, we need to think about what we've got here. We've got our chicken loop and our safety release. Making certain that I activate the safety release and put it back together before I ever try to enter the water. It should be easy to do on the beach because it won't get easier to do in the water. Then I get my safety leash and I hook it up to my flagging line or safety line, whichever you'd like to call it. This is the line that lands the kite after you activate the release. Putting the chicken loop onto my harness, the chicken's tail underneath, making certain the ratchet's through there, and it's good to go. Something goes wrong, I go to safety, the kite stops, doesn't get damaged, lands on the water. Everything works. We're being aware of looking out for tangles and knots in this line here. But again, as long as you've inspected your gear, when you've set up and pumped up, laid out your lines, you should know it's all good. It's a great idea, like I said. Understand how all this stuff works. There's a little ratchet on here. We got a mechanical type release. Goes back together. Won't release accidentally unless you don't set it up properly. It's designed so even if you bump it, it won't release. You have to push all the way to release it. Back underneath. Good to go. I got everything set up in the front. Now I've put my leash on the front as well, because if I did activate my safety and it didn't work properly because I'd done something dodgy, hadn't set it up properly, and it was pulling me along, I can get to it and reach it to activate it. Nice and easy. So hopefully that's covered everything for you guys and you've got a bit of an idea now. Again, this isn't replacing your lesson, this is just reminding you of what you've got to watch out for. You know, and hopefully making you more confident about going out and practicing with your gear in a safe way. Remember, stay safe, have fun, and hopefully we get good wind. See you later.